I thought I was living the best day of my life. I had just signed a deal worth millions, the kind of deal you grind toward for years, and I walked out of that meeting feeling like I was finally the man I'd always wanted to be. But less than an hour later, I was standing in a grocery store parking lot surrounded by flashing lights with an old woman screaming at the cops that I was a drug dealer who had stolen my own car. My perfect day shattered into a nightmare in seconds. I'm Marcus Harris. I run a tech company, and that afternoon I was still buzzing from the high of pulling off the biggest contract of my career. I had on my best suit, the one I save for moments that really matter. On the way home, I stopped to grab a few groceries: milk bread, a rotisserie chicken, because even after closing a 7-figure deal, I just wanted to cook dinner in my own kitchen. I pulled my bright yellow Lamborghini Urus into the far edge of the parking lot away from everyone else because that car was my trophy. The one ridiculous thing I allowed myself when the business finally started turning a real profit. Every time I looked at it, I remembered all those nights of cheap ramen and coding until dawn. That car wasn't just metal and wheels, it was proof that I'd made it. I was still humming with adrenaline when I came back out to the lot, loading bags into the trunk, smiling at my little haul of apples and bread. That's when I heard her voice, sharp, jagged, dripping with contempt. I turned and saw this woman, maybe in her 60s, pale face, pinched blonde hair, yanked into a bun so tight it looked painful. She wore a shiny green tracksuit and had a phone clamped to her ear. Her finger was shaking as she pointed at me. "That's him. He's stealing the car. He's dealing drugs right here." For a moment I thought she had to be talking to someone else. I looked around, then back at her, and realized, no, she meant me. I tried to laugh it off to de-escalate. "Ma'am, this is my car. I'm just loading groceries." But she wasn't hearing a word. Into the phone she shrieked, "He's aggressive! He's huge! He's scaring me!" And then it hit me the way her eyes flicked to my skin, the way her voice rose in fake panic. This wasn't about drugs. This wasn't about theft. This was about a black man standing next to a car she didn't think he deserved. Minutes later, sirens tore through the quiet suburban evening. 2 squad cars boxed me in. Officers climbed out, hands hovering near their weapons. My stomach dropped. I knew the drill. Keep your voice calm. Narrate every move. Don't give them any reason to see you as what she said I was. I explained. I handed over my license, my registration. They ran the plates, and everything checked out. But she wasn't done. Beatrice Franklin, that was her name, screeched that I must have cocaine in the trunk, demanded a search, bragged about knowing the chief's wife. She spat out those words like a threat I play bridge with her every week. When the cops finally walked away, she glared at me and snapped a photo of my plate. That look in her eyes told me this wasn't over, and I was right. Over the next week, my life twisted into something unrecognizable. I was pulled over 3 times in 5 days. Once for supposedly speeding when my dashcam clearly showed I wasn't. Once because a single leaf had blown onto my license plate. Once for a dark window tint that was literally factory standard. Each stop ended the same way, condescending tone, a ticket slapped on my windshield, that smug little smirk from the officer like he was telling me we can do this all day. Then a citation appeared on my front door claiming my lawn was too long even though I pay landscapers every week. I started to feel hunted. Every drive, every glance in the mirror filled me with dread. That Lamborghini, once my symbol of pride, became a target painted on my back. One night I sat in my kitchen, papers and tickets spread across the table, and I wondered if they'd finally broken me. Maybe I should just sell the car. Disappear quietly, let it go. Maybe I was the problem, too stubborn to fit into their box. I stared at the empty house, at the silence pressing in, and for a minute I almost gave up. But then I remembered her face, her words. I play bridge with the chief's wife. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. This was a vendetta, and that realization lit something in me. I decided I wasn't going to roll over. If they wanted war, I'd fight it my way. I hired the toughest civil rights attorney I could find, Jasmine Carter. She was sharp, fierce, the kind of woman who could slice a man in half with a look. She listened to everything, Every stop, every bogus citation, every word Beatrice screamed in that parking lot. When I was done, she leaned back and said, "This isn't harassment. This is a conspiracy. And we're going to bury them with their own arrogance." With her by my side, I installed cameras on my car, cameras on my house uploaded every second to the cloud. Every ticket, every stop became evidence. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was building a case. That's when they escalated. One Tuesday morning, without warning, 20 SWAT officers stormed my company headquarters. Guns drawn. My employees, engineers, designers, normal people were herded into a conference room like criminals. They seized our servers, our computers, every file. The warrant said we were laundering money. It was laughable, except it wasn't. My business, my dream, was being ripped apart in front of my eyes. I stood there numb, watching my life's work carried out in cardboard boxes. For the first time since this began, I felt true despair. They'd found my weakness. Not me, but my people. My company. If clients left, if trust evaporated, everything I'd built would collapse. That night, I sat in my empty office, staring at the unplugged cables, and thought maybe they've won. But Jasmine saw it differently. She filed an emergency motion in federal court, and within 2 days, a judge slammed the raid as an egregious abuse of power, ordered every item returned immediately, called out the timing the lawsuit I'd filed against the police chief and this sudden raid as too coincidental to be anything but retaliation. The media devoured it. Suddenly, the story wasn't about me being a rich guy with tickets, it was about a corrupt police chief using SWAT as his personal goons. For the first time, the tide turned. The city council launched an investigation. The chief was on the ropes. And Beatrice, she was seething. But cornered animals lash out. My tires were slashed. My wife's brakes cut. A private investigator working with us was threatened, his daughter's name mentioned. They wanted us scared off balance. And one night in a dark parking garage, 2 men stepped out of a sedan and walked straight toward me. My heart hammered, but I held up my phone and said, steady as I could. A smile. "You're live on camera. Thousands of people are watching." Total bluff, but it worked. They froze, cursed, and drove away. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. But I knew they'd be back. The end came on a stormy night. Power to my house suddenly went out. My security system blared that the lines had been cut. My bodyguards shouted in my earpiece, "Sir, get to the safe room." Glass shattered. Then gunfire. I locked myself in that steel closet, shaking, dialing 911, begging for federal agents, not the local cops I knew were dirty. The silence that followed was worse than the shots. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then sirens. A voice outside, FBI. "Drop your weapons." More gunfire. Then silence again. When they finally opened the safe room door, my bodyguards were bloodied but alive. 2 men were down those same thugs. One of them confessed on the spot they'd been hired by the chief of police himself, paid from his off-the-books fund, ordered to stage a robbery and make sure I didn't survive it. That was it. The smoking gun. Before dawn, FBI agents swarmed the chief's house, dragging him and Beatrice out in handcuffs. The mighty couple who had turned my life into a living hell were finished. Their empire crumbled overnight. I stood on my porch as the sun rose, my house still littered with shattered glass, and watched the news vans roll in. The reign of terror was over. They were done. And standing there exhausted and hollow, I realized something I'd known all along: power only works if you let fear silence you.